Palantir released a new video yesterday and it provides a lot of insight into the growth of both Foundry and AIP in one particular sector, healthcare. Now I'm going to leave a link to the entire video below if you want to watch the whole thing, but let me just give you the main points and my take. So the video was about Tampa General Hospital. Now Tampa General is one of the largest hospitals in Florida, but they are expanding their footprint and they are expanding outside of just the hospital. And now they have many sites for clinical care throughout Florida. So they are expanding rapidly. But of course, as with anything, this is causing growing pains. As they've grown more, so has the complexity. And it means they have more data, but their analytical abilities have not grown as they have. They had the vision as an organization of competing on analytics, but in order to do so, they needed to have their data in one place. They needed to be able to access what they need when they need it. And more importantly than that, they then needed to be able to utilize this data to allow them to make better business decisions. So the first step that they took, and this was called Analytics Hub 1.0, was actually seeing the need for improvement and identifying the gaps that they had. And then they had Analytics Hub 2.0. And this is where they started closing the data gap. And of course, this is where Palantir came in. When they were identifying the gaps, they noticed that they didn't have any comprehensive business intelligence nor artificial intelligence strategy. It simply didn't exist for them. They also noticed that their speed to market was slow and that there were many point solutions. Point solutions being where they would solve one particular problem without regard or insight into any potential related problems. And their capabilities that they had were just completely disjointed. They didn't all connect. On top of this, they had garbage data in and they were producing garbage data out as well. Probably more important than any of this, they had challenges in understanding their data. It's all well and good having good data, but understanding it and actually then using that data to drive the business forward, however that looks, is what's important. And they didn't just want a solution straight out of a box. They wanted to work with a company that understood how they, as a hospital organization, as a healthcare organization, needed to actually view and use their data. They needed to be able to work with a company that allowed customization, because they made the point in the video that they care about having this data. But more importantly than any of that, they care about their patients first and foremost. The issue that they have is that the data is being collected through the patient journey and care continuum, and they need to be able to take that data, get the insights from it, and actually give it back to the operators and clinicians so that they can use that data to run the health system better. So we're talking running it more effectively, bringing up cost savings, so bringing down costs, treating patients better, and that means reducing patients' length of stay, reducing readmissions, and more importantly than any of that, reducing mortality. So how do you do this? If that's your problem, what is the solution? Well, the solution is that they need all of their data at their fingertips. So they needed a data architecture to collect the data from all these different sources, from different parts of the journey that the patient goes on, and they need to bring that all into one centralized source of truth, because you need to do that before you can actually work with and understand your data. And you're probably hearing that, bringing it all into one centralized source of truth, and you're probably already thinking just how useful Palantir can be here. They need to get the data in real time. They need to analyze it in real time. They need to pull the insights from it, and then they need to deploy the decisions and the solutions based on that data again in real time. It's no good in a hospital setting or any business really to see this data and then deploy the solution in 4 years' time. At this point, they started working with Foundry. Foundry became their operating system to connect everything for them. It allows them to see real-time data analytics, but also it allows them to integrate artificial intelligence and machine learning to help them actually make better decisions. They pointed out that working with Palantir was a mutual effort. It was a two-way street. So Tampa would bring their expertise in the healthcare sector, and Palantir would offer their expertise in data and bring the tools to allow models and data to actually be deployed. Organizations have to be able to leverage the tools. They have to know how to use the tools that Palantir are providing them as effectively and as efficiently as possible so they can get the best outcome for their business. This, to me, just makes me think about how useful the AIP bootcamps must be. A chance for organizations to go to these absolutely zero charge events where they can put hands on keyboard and actually learn and see how AIP can benefit their business in such a short space of time. No wonder AIP demand is going through the roof, but it does just highlight that importance of actually understanding how these tools are working. I think actually Palantir offer free ongoing learning courses for organizations as well. Maybe they're not ongoing, but free courses so organizations can actually learn how to utilize these tools in everyday life. And all of this then highlights to me just how critical it is for organizations and people to actually lean into that cognitive dissonance and actually be willing to integrate AI into their business in order to remain competitive. And then we need to actually look into just how beneficial Palantir have been. And remember, this stuff, these pieces of evidence that we're going to look at in a minute, isn't just specific to Tampa General. This can be extrapolated to healthcare in general, the healthcare sector, because these solutions that Palantir has offered Tampa are solutions that would be so incredibly valuable to any healthcare organization, and not just in the US either, around the world. And then start to remember that Palantir is not just good in the healthcare sector. Their total addressable market is massive, and they can work with literally any sector to provide customizable solutions to that sector. Anyway, one of the early projects that they did utilizing Palantir's tools and software had some incredible outcomes. They saw that the average hold time for patients in the PACU decreased by 28%, from 5.8 hours to 4.2 hours. Now, this is obviously good for Tampa in terms of turnaround time and maybe customer satisfaction and just utilizing their resources better, but also this directly benefits the patient as well, because firstly, no one wants to spend their time waiting around if they don't have to. They want to be treated, they want to go home, they want to be comfortable. And also in places where you pay for your treatment and you know, the length of stay maybe comes into that cost. I don't know too much about that, but I imagine that's good as well for the patient. They also saw a 30% improvement in the staff ratio in affected units. So that means that they had more nurses in particular available. And this all helped the staff to patient ratio. You kind of have to get this balance right, because if you have one member of staff to, let's say, 20 patients, that member of staff is going to be so overwhelmed and so stressed, and they're not going to enjoy their work. They'll probably end up leaving. You'll have a high resource turnover. Also for the patients, if you have one nurse per 20 patients, you can bet that those patients are not getting the critical care and treatment that they actually need at the right time. And then if you flip it in the reverse, so you have one nurse per one patient, that's not a good allocation of resources, and that's going to cost the hospital a lot of money that it probably doesn't actually need to be spending. So the fact that they were able to bring the staff to patient ratio and bring that to a more appropriate level benefits again both the patient and the business. Tampa were able to also use Palantir's software to develop a predictive model that can predict with 95% accuracy which patients were more likely to have a longer hold time in the PACU. So obviously they can then use this information to actually allocate resources more effectively and reduce the wait times for the patients. So those benefits that I just spoken about there, that's not new information. We already knew this. We already saw just how useful, how valuable Palantir were being for Tampa. But this next piece, this next benefit, I actually didn't know before watching the video yesterday. So Tampa were able to reduce the time that patients were on antibiotics by 13%. That's a really big deal. Let me tell you why. It's because for the patient, if they are on antibiotics for a prolonged period of time that isn't appropriate for what they need, they can have, one, some really nasty side effects, and two, they can develop antibiotic resistance, which is obviously not great, and especially not good for patients that need ongoing care. But also, from Tampa's point of view, giving prolonged amounts of antibiotics basically wastes money. Tampa were working on different projects with Palantir's Foundry and AIP. They were getting used to how to effectively utilize the tools to make better decisions. And then, unfortunately, Hurricane Ian hit last year, but they were actually able to create a response within 24 hours, to deploy a solution in 24 hours, because they were able to leverage their connected healthcare ontology from Palantir. And this ability to look and utilize data in real time as quickly as possible to deploy a solution is so incredibly important in this sector, because at the end of the day, the end user is a patient, and it's the patient's lives that are at risk. And there will be many sectors out there that need to be able to come up with a solution, a response within a very, very short time period. And if you are manually looking at your data and utilizing that data to make business decisions, or you just don't have the appropriate tools to help you do that, to give you those insights, making a real quick, like a quick solution is just not going to be possible. And then AIP takes it to the next level. Now, the way that they're using AIP and the benefits that they're seeing are not ones I would have thought of myself. So one way that they're using AIP is they're actually using it to scan through notes and then identifying whether they missed any procedures that they should have charged for, or whether they charged for any procedures that they actually shouldn't have. And this allows them to reduce missed revenue opportunities. Again, not only are the patients being benefited by Palantir's tools and software, but also the business's top line, the business's revenue, that is also being positively affected by their work with Palantir. And it's not just Tampa that can benefit here, it's the healthcare sector in general, because healthcare just seems to have such disjointed data and they have a critical need to understand their data. We heard Alex Karp say a while ago that a year ago, 1% of all US healthcare was using Palantir. Now it's 16%. That sentence alone shows how rapidly Palantir are growing in this sector. And like I said, that was a while ago. So what is that now? How much higher than 16% is that? And then you have to think, what could that be worldwide? Palantir is allowing organizations to remain competitive. Let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in another video very shortly.